Well, if you've ever asked yourself why I still don't feel well, that's why we're here. And let me tell you something. I have to tell you a true story. And I'm here with Sandra, who I went out on the street and found because Sandra is my point. And no, not really. Actually, you sat there. You were watching. We're using you for some other videos, you know, that we were doing. And you sat there and you watched one of my segments. And you sat there and said, oh, my gosh, that's me. I was showing how the cell, you know, communicates with the, you know, the hormones can't communicate with the cell because of cellular inflammation. And literally, I came off the stage and she was basically like, oh my gosh, that's me.
I was mind blown.
Yeah.
Mind blown at what I was listening to, because so much of what you were talking about is what I am experiencing on a daily basis.
Yeah. Yeah, you made my point. And I kept saying, yeah, of course, your hair is falling out. Of course. And how old are you, Sandra?
I'm 31.
31.
31.
Yeah. Yeah. And let me tell you something, you know, what I had said to you is after you told my story, and you're going to tell them, I said, this is the epidemic. You know, this is what, you know, you would look at Sandra and say, she's healthy. Matter of fact, Sandra, you're a health coach, right?
I am.
Yeah.
Dance teacher, yoga instructor.
You exercise?
Exercise every day.
You told me your diet, you eat better than most people that I know, right? So you exercise and you said, well, but gosh, I can't lose this weight now that I said, you know.
Correct,
she looks like she doesn't need to lose weight, but believe me, I was there. When I was sick, I put on weight where I knew it was and something was wrong. And you said, doesn't matter how much I exercise, doesn't matter how I eat, I can't lose it. It's getting worse.
I can't lose it, and I don't feel well. And I think that's the biggest thing.
That's the biggest thing.
You know, people, we all look different and we all have different shapes and sizes, and it's less about like what you look like, I believe, and more about what you feel like from the inside out.
Yeah.
And so.
Well, tell them how you feel, because that is what you focused on.
Yes. So a year ago, I was diagnosed with Hashimoto's, which is a thyroid disease, and I knew nothing about thyroid problems at the time. I was losing my hair, no energy, foggy brain, unexplained weight gain.
Okay, you see why? I don't remember back on some of those videos, I talked about all those things.
And so it's been a process, and a year later, some things have gotten better, but I still have the disease. I'm still experiencing, you know, weight issues and foggy brain issues, and
your hair's falling out?
My hair, it started growing back and then it stopped again. And so it's just really discouraging, and I deal with people every day trying to help them feel better, and you know, it's a very frustrating process knowing that like I'm taking natural supplements and, you know, doing everything.
What are you taking? Because this is, when she told me what she was taking, I said, of course you are, because this is what everyone's taking. Tell me what you're
taking. I take a thyroid medication, Thyroid, which is a more natural form.
It is a better thyroid, but we'll talk about that. Go ahead.
And I take a multivitamin, a probiotic.
Of course she does. Of course she does.
Biotin, vitamin D3.
Of course she does.
I take supplements for my adrenals.
Of course, she addressed the adrenals. Remember I said I was dressing my thyroid and my adrenals, and a probiotic,
and a
I
probiotic,
bet?
Yep.
Probiotic.
I mean, I have about 12 to 15 supplements I take a day.
Did we take up at the fish oil? She's taking fish oil.
Yeah,
I know she's
fish oil.
Fish oil, of course you are.
Yes.
Yeah, so the point is most people are taking all of those things.
DHEA is another one.
That's fish oil, basically.
Is that okay?
Yeah. Oh, DHEA, that's the hormone.
Yeah,
that helps the hormone. So
Yep.
you're taking hormone cream, thyroid, you're taking fish oil. So she's taking these things that most people are taking. I think the thing that struck you the most is when I drew the cell, I talked about thyroid hormone not getting its message in the cell. And it doesn't matter how much of these things you take, if its message isn't getting in the cell, you're going, oh my God, yeah, that's me.
Yes.
Yeah.
The biggest thing when you were drawing out that example was how you were saying the good can't get in and the bad can't get out.
Right.
And on a cellular level, it made so much sense to me when I was listening to what you were saying, because it finally brought things full circle for me as to why I can't feel better.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, and cellular detox I bet you've done a lot of different detoxes.
I have. I have.
I'm telling you, folks, I didn't make this up. She literally was really sitting here. I said I couldn't have found you on the street any better. I would have put out an article, an ad looking for a you. There's so many of you, but here you are. So God is that good. So what type of detox have you done? I'm just curious.
Mostly food-oriented detoxes. So juicing, cleansing,
yeah.
And it's helped, but the problem is the sustainability. It can always, it's almost like a short-term fix to a long-term problem, I mean, I was told that I will have thyroid disease my whole life and I will have to take thyroid medication my whole life. And that's not something I'm comfortable with.
You know, you didn't probably see this video, they have, but I talked about how most of those things are downstream from getting to the cell. And you saw that. I mean, you watched that little clip and you said, oh my gosh, I haven't got to the cell. And that's true. You know, you told them, told me, I'm sorry, before we got on here,
Yes.
about where it all started. You started going to doctors. Tell them that experience,
I
because
did.
they've experienced that.
Yes, so I started with traditional medicine, and I was seeing, you know, great physicians, but they were not helping me, and they wanted to treat symptoms, and I knew there was a deeper problem. There was a point in time where I was getting all of these rashes all over my face. Went to the top dermatologists in the city. They said, it's your makeup. And I'm like, there's no way this is my makeup. And I went through this process of basically self-diagnosing myself to realize that, like, when I stopped eating a certain way, those rashes would go away. So then I went on the course of a naturopathic doctor, of whom I love and I've had more success with, but there are still these underlying things.
Right. So, you know, just because I said, oh, that's one of the suggestions we make. You took away gluten, right?
I did.
So
I
you
took away
exchanged the grains you were eating. You said I was eating quinoa and brown rice
Yes.
instead of some of the other grains.
Right.
Right.
And I mean, no pasta, white rice, you know, white rice is gone.
And
no
then the
bread.
rashes went away. Just that one shift.
Yes.
At least that went away. Okay, see folks, I mean, look, diet is a part of this. However, the diet's only a part of this, because you can see you still aren't where you should be,
Correct.
obviously.
Correct.
You know, and that's where you said, oh my gosh, no one's ever brought me to the cell. All right, so I want to bring you to the board.
Okay.
I tell them
Let's do it.
anything that's really important, I
Yeah.
bring to the board, because I really want you to understand it. And then I want you to, like, we'll kind of just talk about it.
Sure.
I want you to ask me questions, because questions you have, they're going to have. So let's go to the board. Okay, Sandra, we're at the board.
Yes.
This is where the magic happens. Actually, this is what you saw first.
This is what I saw that changed my life in this moment.
we bring them into the cell. You know, I mean, this is where it is. I mean, you know, we say that, you know, true detoxification has to occur at the cell. And I have a saying, I don't think you heard it, but if, you know, you won't get well until you fix the cell. And in
I like that.
her case, yeah, exactly. You're not going to get well till you fix the cell. You're not going to get well till you detox the cell. You know, and you've done a lot of things. Matter of fact, I loved it because you did everything that they did, right? I mean,
Yep.
you're taking all the same things. You know, and when I draw the cell, I draw the hormone receptors, you know, and part of this understanding is, you know, we can have hormones, we can take hormones, but the problem is when the hormone can't get its message in the cell, it doesn't matter. You're taking, what you said you're taking Nature
Nature thyroid, yes.
Nature thyroid, which is better than most thyroids. It's more of a natural one. However, it doesn't matter because, again, I gave the example that you heard, pouring gasoline on the car, right? It's like, no, you have to get the gas in the car. But when these receptors are blunted because toxins come in and they literally blunt those receptors, drive inflammation, now the thyroid can't get its message in the cell. And I want to bring up, for your sake, for her sake, a couple other points. Because I said, you know, this is why people get sick. I'm going to come back to this example in a minute.
Okay.
But I want to bring another example. I'm going to do a really bad job of drawing a stool. Camera guy just said, man, he draws perfect circles, but that one wasn't so good. Now that one's meant to be an oval. Okay, so this is a stool, a three-legged stool, right? Have you ever heard the analogy of a three-legged stool?
No.
Really? Okay. Is it just me? No. No. Okay. The analogy is this. You're gonna be like, oh, of course. If I take one leg away, what happens to the stool?
Okay, gotcha.
All right. So basically, all three legs have to be there for
Yes.
it to be stable. Okay. This is, I think, a great analogy for how you ended up where you are.
Yes.
Okay. And possibly them. So, and also, but it's also the solution too. Okay. So you said Hashimoto's, right?
Yes.
So you have an autoimmune disease. Okay. Autoimmune disease. That means your own body's attacking itself.
Correct.
Okay, you got that. So whether it's attacking the thyroid, whether it's attacking the receptor on the cell, whether it's attacking the hormone, multiple places the body can attack. This is actually a massive epidemic. As a matter of fact, most people have autoimmune, where their body's creating the cellular inflammation and they
Okay.
don't know it. And they're just not diagnosed until years down the road because the testing is in the Stone Ages for autoimmune. So many people today, I mean, there's estimates that are really scary. 70-80% of the population has some type of autoimmune.
I have a quick question. I was told when I was diagnosed that it could be genetic and that also I'm of Lebanese descent and that Lebanese women are prone to the thyroid
And it's true.
So are these things accurate?
Okay, but here's the thing. You know, first of all, the old dogma was your genes caused your disease. They got this education, you didn't. However, I'm going to give it to you now, and it will remind them. Look, we don't get sick because of our genes. I mean, there's some diseases that are strictly genetically driven, right? You know, Down syndrome is being one of them. However, most diseases like that, the gene has to be triggered or turned on. It's called epigenetics.
Okay.
So the gene literally gets turned on. The number one thing that changes genes being turned on is toxins. And I told them about a Stanford University study where they actually took certain toxins, BPA, which most women get exposed to in cosmetics, and it triggered the gene in mice called the agouti gene that caused them to gain weight. And it didn't matter how much they exercised,
Wow.
and it didn't matter what they ate. So that's what's happening today. And by the way, it also changed their coat color. You know, so it affected their thyroid, it affected their skin, it affected their hair. But the point is genes get turned on, and you made my point without even knowing it. So that gene got triggered. That didn't mean that you would get it automatically. It had to be triggered. Does that make sense?
It makes so much sense.
Okay, all right. So one of the legs of the stool is the gene, okay? Gene getting, and I'm just gonna write triggered, okay? The gene gets triggered or turned on, okay?
Okay.
So I'll put DNA up here just so people know that too, okay?
Okay.
Epigenetics gene. So one of the legs of the stool is something gets turned on. So that gene got turned on. But then we have to ask ourselves, go ahead, you had a question.
Did it get turned on by something I was doing to my body?
No doubt, but unknowingly.
Okay.
You know, meaning that you were exposed to toxins. If your mom had silver fillings, did she have silver fillings?
I'm not sure.
Okay,
Yeah.
but let's say she did. And let's just say mom
does.
had other. Okay,
No, yeah.
let's say she had other toxins. In utero, you got that. So you saw me do the bucket. Remember the
did.
bucket, right? And the bucket fills up. Okay, the bucket fills up with toxins from the time we're little. And then eventually we get that one stressor. Warren said he got a whiplash, subluxated his neck, and then boom, he got sick. But he had mercury toxicity because he was cleaning up mines and he was overloaded with mercury. Also, he was living in a house that had mold in it, so he had major sources, and then all of a sudden Warren's bucket overflowed. So here's the point I want to make. Stressors, okay? Stressors, physical, chemical, or emotional, that's really important. Fill the bucket, cause it to overflow. I'm going to make it more scientific. The stressors trigger the gene.
That makes so much sense.
Yeah. So in other words, you did things physically, chemically, and emotionally. A bucket fills, and boom, you turn on a gene. And now you're expressing that thyroid condition. So your genes didn't make you sick. I remember some years ago, Time magazine had a great thing. It said, your DNA is not your destiny. So all these scientists, the old dogma was, you got sick because of your genes. It's just genetic. No, we know that's not true. We know that the gene actually gets turned on or triggered. So your DNA is not your destiny. I've got news for you. Lebanese people aren't weaker. As a matter of fact, I would argue the opposite. This is a tough, you know, beautiful people. Yeah. So the stressors together, typically I call it the perfect storm. So I always draw 3 storms. Do you remember the movie The Perfect Storm?
Yeah,
okay.
Great movie.
What was the guy's name in that? I can't remember.
Well, Mark Wahlberg was in it.
Okay, anyway,
He's one of my favorites.
Okay, so you remember that guy. Anyway, so we have 3 storms that come together that cause the catastrophic
Clooney
storm.
was
George
in it.
Clooney, that's the one I was thinking of. The catastrophic storm was, if you have 2, it's a bad storm, but when you have 3, it's the perfect storm. That's what happened. That's what happened in my life.
Okay.
Man, when that hit, my life fell apart.
Even the discouraging, when I was told I have a disease, it was like mentally, I'm like,
They told you had a disease forever, they told you.
yes, I will have to take this medication forever. I mean, the stress of that, I don't know if that stress can trigger this to be worse, but.
Physical, chemical, emotional. Subluxation in the neck.
Yep.
That's why you're in the office you're in, perhaps. That's one stressor. Add the chemical, add an emotional. So we'll do it this way. We'll do physical, chemical, and emotional.
Makes so much sense.
You know what I see? I discuss this with people all the time, every day almost, you know, where they're saying, well, you know, this was happening in my life. And so when did your chronic fatigue start? Well, you know, honestly, it was after my husband left, or my child got sick, or, you know, they talk about an emotional stressor. You know, Warren said it happened after a whiplash, or a physical stressor. They had the chemical stuff bioaccumulating. Their bucket was filling their whole life.
Yep.
But it wasn't until they added one more.
I quit my job and I redirected things, and that's when it started.
Exactly. It was the one more. So
Yeah.
was it that? No. I remember years ago they said whiplashes cause, you know, fibromyalgia. Well, many people get whiplashes. They don't get fibromyalgia. No. It's whiplash with the chemicals that have been bioaccumulating,
Yep.
you know, all these other stressors come together, the bottom falls out. But really, scientifically, what happens, the gene gets turned on.
Okay.
And we all have, hers is thyroid, you know, but yours may be something else. But once that's triggered, boom. And I've got to tell you, we know science shows that we can turn off that gene. And you didn't see that video, but
I will watch it, though.
Oh, yes, you will. My 5 R's is a roadmap to fixing the cell. When you fix the cell, we know that that's able to turn off those bad genes. So your genes can be turned off. As easy as they were turned on, guess what? In the mice that I talked about when they gave them the toxin, they turned off the gene by giving them something called methyl groups. R number 5, he's reestablishing methylation. Isn't that cool?
It's fascinating to me. What's somewhat frustrating to me is why aren't physicians across the country educated in this type of stuff? Or why aren't we being informed about
That's
these things?
the mission, and that's the goal. These people are blessed because they are in an office that understands the physical component. They understand the fact that the chemical component, and they're, you know, this is a system that deals with the cause at both at the cellular level. So that's right.
Yes.
And we're going to hope she's going to join us in this mission. I know
Yes.
you are. So, you know, and then there's one more component. You had said, tell them as I get here, the
Sure.
markers that were low. You had blood work done, right?
I did have
Tell
blood
me.
work done, so then a bunch of tests came back, and I had a neurotransmitter test done, which reads all the chemicals in your brain and that your body is making. So my serotonin, all my levels were flatlined. I mean, my doctor thought, like, how is this person not
Serotonin
depressed?
is the one. When they give people depression drugs, they give them something called a serotonin uptake inhibitor. And what that does is it raises, so you don't uptake the serotonin, it raises serotonin. So it makes people feel better, but there's a consequence. Go ahead.
Sure. And so my serotonin levels were less than 5%, epinephrine less than 5%, testosterone less than 5%. All of these things were literally like collapsed.
Yeah.
But you know,
All the feel-good hormones.
all the feel-good
down,
hormones,
yeah.
yeah. Which is a very conflicting thing for myself because I'm dancing every day and teaching and yoga, and you know, and so my body is like all over the place,
Yeah.
and in my brain I'm like, I can't feel sad. So
Yeah, and again, we can just, you know, give more serotonin or ask the question, wait a minute, why is this young lady, beautiful young lady, serotonin
you.
low, right? And all the, did the doctors ever ask why, really?
well, in fairness to who I was working with, she said parts of my body were stealing from other parts
It's true.
to make up for.
No doubt about that, right.
So
But why though? Why,
Right.
why a 31-year-old girl has all these hormones that are low? Well, we could flip back to the cell. We know why, right? But let me finish this point because
Sure.
it really deals with the serotonin. And this is an epidemic of people in America, honestly, and it's a sad epidemic that's happening. Part of this, why people get sick, this three-legged stool analogy, is what we call the microbiome. I'm not going to write that word, it's a big one, but I'll write gut, okay?
Okay.
In your gut, which is what science now knows is part of what we call microbiome. That's good and bad bacteria. We used to think it was just for digestion. Now we know more. We know that these bacteria actually communicate with our cells in our body and actually make immune cells. It communicates with our cells to actually make serotonin. So you can't make that brain chemical without certain bacteria. Have you ever taken antibiotics
that
as a
makes
kid?
sense. Yes, I was told, so I went through a period of time where I was on antibiotics for an excessive amount of time, and I was told this has contributed. I have an overwhelming amount of yeast in my body, bad bacteria, and so this is all kind of like the perfect storm.
I hate to say it, but of course she does.
Yeah.
You know, because see, we grew up in this generation that I'm 50, you're 31, so definitely my generation, where they wanted to throw antibiotics at everything.
Everything.
Yeah, and you know, is there a time and is there a place? You know, I think we would argue yes, a time and a place, but every strep throat, every earache, what we've caused is a disruption in the gut, in this microbiome. So now we know that if we lower certain bacteria because we killed them off, even toxins from silver fillings that mercury goes down the gut, kills these bacteria. We get a disruption in that. In one of the videos, I talked about a chemical called glyphosate, which is used in like all of our conventional food. They're spraying it to harvest it, they're spraying it to kill weeds and stuff, but glyphosate also kills these bacteria. And when you do, it now interferes with the chemicals your brain needs to function. So when you kill bacteria here, believe it or not, now you can't make the chemicals or the neurotransmitters. You said I had a neurotransmitter test. You got excited.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you now don't make those neurotransmitters, those chemicals your brain needs to function. This is a big part of the autoimmune. Follow this. Okay, follow this. Here's the deal.
Stick with us.
Yeah, stick with this. So certain bacteria get destroyed, okay? These bacteria make a certain immune cell called a T regulatory cell. That immune cell's job is to tell your immune system it's okay to back off. That's opposite of autoimmune, right? In other words, her immune system's not getting the message to back off, so it's driving the inflammation process.
Correct.
With these bacteria in the gut, they communicate, they literally make these cells called T regulatory cells. So if you don't have enough of those bacteria, you don't make the T regulatory cells, and your immune system's always in hyperdrive. Now, hers is autoimmune. Yours might be some type of allergy, hay fever, food allergy. And this is an epidemic. Kids allergic to every food, everything on the planet. This microbiome is part of it. And by the way, we know that if we can get these bacteria, not just a regular probiotic, so you're in the right place, we can also turn off those bad genes, you see. So the stressor, certain bacteria being missing can actually trigger genes too. But when we reestablish them, we can also get the immune system to back off. We can turn off certain genes. So you see, this is how you got there.
Right.
This has been disrupted. A regular probiotic is not going to be necessary to fix it. All these things that we do, getting rid of the toxins, getting rid of the stressors, this is what you need. We need to go upstream.
And the fact that there's a cure is what blows my mind.
Well, you know, the body's the only thing that cures, honestly. I mean, I always say, you know, I don't cure anything. The doctors in their office don't cure anything. The body has the ability to do that, right? So there's no supplement, there's no drug that cures. But when we remove the interference, the body does the healing. Doesn't that make sense? Yeah, that makes sense to me. I want to bring you to, I said I was going to bring you back here, and this is my final point, but it's a really important one. And it's because of what we talked about. T3 is the active hormone.
Right.
Okay, I'm going to draw it this way. T4 is typically the hormones that most people get from their doctor. Okay, so T4 is typically the one. That's the synthroid, the thyroxine.
Okay.
Well, T4 has to convert to T3. So even the natural one you're taking, it probably has mostly this, maybe a little bit of this. I'm not sure exactly which one you're taking, but the point is this conversion, when that doesn't take place, it doesn't matter how much hormone you're taking.
Okay.
So the doctors are giving this. Oh, and by the way, here's the bad part. When you take the hormone, your blood work looks better. So they give you the hormone, and then they measure your blood, and they go, look, it's working. And you're going,
no, I don't
feel any better. Right. Yeah, it's because either of the hormone's not getting in the cell, which is part of it. We talked about that. But sometimes the conversion's not working.
Okay.
So, you know, did your doctor, look at your liver function, because that's where the conversion's made. Even low selenium levels can have to do with that. Methylation that we talked about, R5, has to do with that conversion. So that conversion has to be made. And if you're not making it, you can take all the hormone you want, and your blood work looks normal, you still don't feel well. Very important. So, that's one thing. Now here's another one. You said you had some stress going on?
Stress and foggy brain.
Okay, let's talk about that. So, what happens in times of stress, even if you get the flu, okay, your body will take T3, that's the active hormone that gets in the cell and you make energy from, feel good, okay? It creates something called RT3. Reverse T3 is designed to convert in times of stress, the T3 that makes you have energy, to RT3. RT3 literally blocks the thyroid, the T3.
Wow, okay.
It blocks it because it has the ability to bind to the same receptor, okay? So the RT3 in times of stress comes in, it gets produced, so it's shunted that way. Instead of making more T3, it makes more RT3. RT3 takes up the receptor and purposely blocks the T3 while you're sick or challenged. Why? Because it wants to conserve energy for healing. So when you get the flu,
that makes sense.
Do you have energy when you have the flu?
No.
A lot of that is this blocking, stopping that hormone, so you can take the energy and use it to battle disease instead of waste. So it puts your butt on the couch. When the flu goes away, you're back up and moving, right? Energy's back.
Right.
Now RT3 is not being made as much, and now it's moving towards the T3, and now you have energy again. But what if the stress is chronic? Chemically?
Right.
Emotionally or physically.
Right.
Chronic, meaning that you're always emotionally stressed, or you've bioaccumulated so many toxins that now you're producing too much RT3. I don't know if the RT3 is your issue. It's actually called, RT3 dominance, or, where someone's moving in that direction. Stress can literally cause that chronic stress. It could be the fact that the membrane's inflamed. It's typically a combination, but RT3 dominance, many people have just even due to stress. But I think my point is that doctors really don't ever ask the question of why. Toxic livers, it interferes with that conversion. Toxic cells interfere with the hormone getting in. And people take hormones, their blood work looks better, but they don't feel better. Ultimately, it is about detoxing the cell. You're actually getting teary-eyed, actually.
No, it's because there's like light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah.
So it's amazing. And
yeah, no, this is a real message, and you kind of made me get a little emotional, so I can't pull back here, but it is, and that's the passion, that I have, because it's not about taking more hormones, it's not about, you're going to kill me here, I don't even know if I can finish, but it is about getting to the cell, and you know what, you'll get your life back, honestly, when you get to the cell.
Thank you so much.
Every bit of that makes a difference, so there you have it, no doubt about it, so.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Absolutely. So there it is.